tall, gangly thing?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to High Roll Radio, episode number 17. My name is Nick Gangly DePasquale. I'm going to be your host for the evening, and I'm joined by my constant co-host, SPICYAPPIES. Sullivan, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing? How you doing, eh?
Oh, don't do that.
How you doing, eh?
Don't do that.
He's going to get me speaking Italian.
Regat.
He's going to bring out the
No, I
regat.
think it will.
Ma, where's the regat?
The mats and the regat.
Yeah,
No, I do well. Life's good. We'll talk about set 10 at some point, but that's been my whole life the last couple weeks is just set 10, or last week, I guess. Yeah. We have a very special person with us today.
Mm-hmm.
An OG of the GANGLY'S club, which is a thing now, I guess. And that is Ramkev, Mr. Ramkev TFT. If you want to say hi, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. You know, I can finally play TFT on my computer.
Oh,
which is big. I feel like playing TFT on my laptop actually gave me like secondhand anxiety. Just in the background all the time.
I just want to acknowledge that Appies has not once in the history of our co-hosting introduced the guest, and as soon as Ramkev is on the show, he immediately snaps back into Triforce Tactics podcast host mode and is ready to go and introduce him. So yeah, for anyone, go for it.
Oh no, sorry. I say, because we're gonna talk about our weeks. I'm sure. I'm predicting the future here. We're gonna talk about our weeks a little bit. I've been trying to be very proactive this week and like last week, and just try to do things that I want to, be a little more spontaneous, a little more rambunctious, a little bada bing, bada boom, punch. That's my hair's pink for Vi. I'm a one cost mosher, and so I was just feeling it. I'm gonna, I'm well adapted to introducing Kevin. I can say that. That's it.
All right, so for anyone who's listening for the first time, this is a live Teamfight Tactics call-in show, which honestly, I will say, has not really been much of a call-in show for quite a while now. It has kind of devolved into us talking, but I will say right now we're live on Twitch. Instead of it being on my Twitch channel, this time around we're live on SPICYAPPIES channel, and I do feel like it's already much more successful. We've got quite a few people here. So if this is your first time watching the show, you can actually call in, join us on the show. All you have to do in chat right now is do !high roll. Sully, if you want to type that in for me real quick.
Yes,
!high roll will get you into my Discord channel. Once you're there on the left-hand side, under the High Roll Radio tab, you can go into the Submit Takes channel. And in there, say whatever you want to, get whatever take, whatever question, whatever discussion point you have, throw it in there. And if we like what you have to say, we'll bring it on. I would say, generally speaking, we don't get that many takes, and so we go through most of them as long as it's not something that we really don't want to talk about. But there's a lot that that's been going on in TFT recently with TFT Worlds for 9.5. Set 10 out on PBE, Vegas coming up in just a few weeks. So really, really hoping that this time around we can get some takes and bring some people onto the show. So at any point during the show, use that !high roll command, throw your takes in, and then we'll start to bring people on to the show at some point. And actually, back in the day where you would bring people in as the show would go on, and then more recently, because we've had so few solely, we've really just saved them for the end. I don't know if we want to try and link up calls for the actual...
Wait, your bud just died. 1 second.
Mamma mia.
No.
It's okay, I'll just turn this to Kevin. I don't know if it would be better to wait for calls to line up with what we want to talk about and then bring them in, or if we want to just do calls as a segment at the end. How do you guys feel?
We can try that. I mean, I'm down to do a little bit more fluidly, just a little more, if it's on topic, we bring him in.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Okay. Yeah. If we see something that lines up, then we'll just bring them right in. Yeah, actually, and I see people right now. I know Riley. We're going to bring Riley into the show at some point. But I know Plop wants to talk about patching and TFT and stuff like your balance in set 10. So, yeah, we'll try and line all that up. Okay. Anyway, now you know how the show works. Sorry for the long introduction, but we're all squared away now. And so let's take a minute before we dive into TFT to kind of talk about what we've been up to lately. Sully, you kind of talked a little bit about it before, gave a little teaser on what you've been up to. So why don't you talk about your last, I guess, I mean, I would say just the last week, because it's been too long since we did the last episode, so you can't really recap since then. What have you been up to lately?
Yeah, I've been like deep diving into set 10. I feel like I did like a 24-hour stream of it the other day, and then I slept for 4 hours, and the first thing I did when I woke up was play more. It's so good. We'll talk about more about set 10 a little bit later, but TFT is looking its future is looking very bright. Especially if you've been potentially somewhat disillusioned with the last few sets, no need to worry. We are back. We are in there. How's your week been?
Who, me?
Yeah, you. Yeah, you. Who, me?
My week's been good. My week's been really good. Actually, this is the first time since I don't even know when. It's been the first time in a very long time that I've actually played PBE. And oh my gosh, it is so fun to play PBE. It's been a very long time since I've played TFT, not feeling like I was patches and patches and patches behind people in terms of like understanding the game. And it is so fun to be able to play TFT on an even ground, just learning the units, learning the game. I think it is the most fun I've had playing TFT in a very, very long time. So yeah, PBE is amazing. I've been mainly doing that. My family's been sick. My wife and kids were sick over the weekend, so I'm hoping I'm dodging that. But we'll see. Only time will tell.
Fair warning, everyone. He did say that he might throw up mid-podcast beforehand, so he's getting there.
We're chilling. Don't you worry. But yeah, Kevin, what have you been up to?
I've been doing good. I took a trip to Seattle this weekend, which was dope. Let's see what else. Played some PBE. As I mentioned, I've been playing on my laptop, which is not ideal conditions, but I figured out a fix. And yeah, I mean, overall, just chilling. And then, yeah, I mean, the trip was nice. It was good to unwind and get away from doing school work or research work, I guess, because I feel like when you're only doing like TFT and research work, it starts to get it starts to really weigh down on you.
I mean, sometimes TFT literally feels like schoolwork, right? Like
A little bit.
I imagine that can be mentally very draining.
I don't know if you heard this as well, Nick, but Kevin, you saw a bunch of Smash players in Seattle too, right?
Yeah, I saw a bunch of Smash players because this weekend was, what was it? I mean, Nick just
Court
mentioned
Priority.
this, actually.
Court Priority?
Court Priority,
Yeah.
Saw like EE on the train over to my hotel. I saw Light on the way back. He was on my plane. And it was, I was just mentioning this to Nick, but it's super easy to pick out Smashers from a crowd in public, evidently, because I was like, man, those people on that car, they look like a group of Smash players, and then turns out he was there. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, we've talked a little bit about what we've been up to, so let's recap some things going on in the TFT world right now. And speaking of a world, TFT Set 9, what is it? Runeterra Forge Championship. TFT Worlds just happened just a few weeks ago. Last week.
Hell yeah.
When was that?
Yep.
That was
it was
literally
last week, right?
Wow, it feels
That's crazy.
It feels like it's been so long because Set 10 is out on PBE. But it really was just last weekend. But anyway, Title from Japan won Worlds. But not only did he win Worlds, he won the final day in just 4 games. Appies, you said you watched most of the event. Did you have any opinion on Title going into that final day?
Yeah, I thought he was. I mean, he's been at Worlds. I think every year for like 4 or 5 years now, right? Or every set for like. Was he in set?
I mean,
4?
I remember
like at least set 8 and 7.
I think set 4 was Yatsuhashi, if I remember.
Yes,
correctly.
no, set 5 was
it wasn't 8, 6, 7, 9.
Right? With the Aphelios, the guy that hit Aphelios 2 on 3-1 or something like that. That was Yatsuhashi, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know that
so
Title was
I
think, third, right, in set 7. That was Title, third place in set 7.
Yeah, he's gone very, very. He's just been very consistent for a very long time. Second set 7, Well, yeah, first set 9, yeah. He's just been very good for a very long time, and I feel like Japan is always one of those regions that seems like it's funny, right? Because it's such a small region, very little representation at Worlds, but it's kind of I guess Latin or no OCE is the one that always like somehow just finds. I guess set 9 is an exemption to this, but generally there's like an OCE player and like a Japanese player just in the final lobby, just kind of chilling there with like all the OC or all the NA and like not never mind, not EU, all the NA and
Well,
like
just the major
Chinese
regions.
reps, right? Yeah, the major regions exactly. EU never really makes it because they're a minor region.
No, so just to bounce off of that real quick, because you're right, like it is a trend that we see in TFT that you don't really see in any other esport, that the players from minor regions or developing regions, whatever language that game uses, they do end up finding themselves in the top 8, even LATAM. Like I know Tech Summers was top 8 in, was it set 8 or set 7, and then he was back at Worlds again. Slooper back in like set 3 was top 8, I'm pretty sure. Like it's all over the place, and I think a part of that is obviously variance, but I also think it's just that, you know, when you're not playing a team game, your own individual skill can shine, and so even if your region as a whole isn't very deep, it doesn't mean that you as an individual aren't strong.
Yeah, I think also part of it is I think because TFT is more of a knowledge-based game. You know, it's less. I mean, like League of Legends. I think that in League and games like Smash, when you're playing against, you know, the best, that's sort of how you improve, right? You just do that over and over again. I think a lot of the times, or maybe more so with TFT, is if you're able to sort of see, you can sort of see what people in other regions are doing, and you can sort of think about all of the units in the same way, and in that way you can improve at a similar rate, where I feel like in League and other games it's more so you kind of have to do the playing. You might get less value out of watching because, you know, when you watch in TFT you get basically all of the information, right? And I think that's a big deal, so that it allows, you know, people from other regions who maybe don't have a larger pool of good players, but at the same time, if you're just constantly watching and absorbing the information, then you can stay on the same level.
Yeah, Sully, I didn't mean to entirely derail what you're saying. You were talking about titles specifically, but yeah, Kevin, I think it's so true. Like, you don't have to do the hand check that you can do in League of Legends, right? Like, on some level, people are just getting out mechanicked, and then they're obviously getting out macroed as well. But like, you know, there's another set of hurdles that you have to overcome, whereas in TFT, like you're saying, it's a knowledge-based game. And like Appies, I feel like this is something you can speak to. TFT, I feel like your rate of improvement can be so drastic. Like, you can literally be a world caliber player for a patch, and then all of a sudden it unclicks, or you can't figure it out, or even within a patch, like one day it doesn't click, one day it does, and your ability as a player can change so much in like a 12-hour session, right?
Yeah, for sure. We've seen that a lot, right? Like, a lot of players will just come up in a single set, like Rain, right? Rain got to the final lobby at Worlds after basically getting the competitive scene in that single set. Replay kind of like, obviously he'd been around, but he won Worlds like with set 8 being like his first real set, like kind of in the spotlight, right? And yeah, I think it can be like a smaller scale stuff too, like you said, with like patch to patch. There's some patches where, like, you know, there's like a patch in set 8 where I didn't bot for a game for like 30 games or something, and the next patch I was like in GM, you know. so it definitely like 100% can be whether or not a patch clicks with you as a player, how much effort you are willing to put into it, how deep you dive into it. Like Kevin said, there's very much a knowledge based thing, right? TFT, where it's interesting, where it's like it's a lot about knowledge, but it's also about how you use that knowledge, and like how you use that, how well you use that knowledge can change drastically patch to patch as well, depending on like a ton of factors, right? How much fun you're having, how much effort you put in, how focused you are. So 100%, yeah. I mean, and Title, I mean, I think the crazy thing about Title is that he's just been so consistently good for so long. And it's nice to see it. I think the cool thing too is that this is what I was getting to before, is that it's nice to see like one of those minor regions who always seem to end up in the final lobby take it, right? Because we were always like China, NA, EU, like we're always expecting to be some big major region taking it. But I mean, I feel like title taking it for Japan is like just opens up a whole new basket, like a whole new world for competitive TFT at Worlds, right? Because it really it didn't necessarily feel like everyone could win. I feel like, even though there are a lot of different regions in the final lobby consistently at Worlds, but now it really feels like, okay, everyone can win, right? Which is very cool. Also, I wanted on record that I wished him luck in Japanese on Twitter the night before,
Nice.
and then he won.
Oh,
So
Yeah,
goodness.
that's actually it was solely it was Abby's coming in.
it was a mean
It's
day.
basically it was Abby's just winning. Abby's winning.
Abby's won the world,
I gave him the spirit ball. What can
That's
I say? I mean, it was, yeah.
Sully, you bring up a
No,
really
he's a
interesting
beast, though.
point, though, when you're talking about his consistency, which is that he's been to Worlds 3 times. And I think the most impressive part about that, though, is that he's made it to Worlds 3 times when Japan only has 2 slots, right? So we often talk about in TFT how, you know, you can't just play for the first position. The bullseye has to be wider, right? And that's why Worlds, qualifying for Worlds is in some way, depending on who you ask, and it is my opinion that it is more impressive. The greatest achievement in TFT in North America is qualifying for Worlds, to me at least. I mean, obviously, like in terms of like the actual spectacle, winning is number one, but to me, just in terms like results wise, I think qualifying for Worlds should be like the bullseye for North American players. But we have 5 slots, right? And you have DQA and Milk. Has Milk gone 3 times? Is it only DQA? No, DQA and Milk are the 2 players who have gone 3 times.
Not Milk went twice.
He went set 5. He went set 6, and then
Did he go? It's like, okay, then he
Wait.
also went set 7. What was Kledge? Was that set?
that was
set 7,
5.
right?
No,
That
so
was
he's
set
only gone
5.
twice. Yeah.
Like Kledge was 5.
Wait, so is DQA the
Oh my
only
God.
player that's made it to Worlds 3 times? I feel like I should know this. This is like a me kind of trivia question.
It's a very new fact.
Yeah, I know. I think it's only DQA, which is crazy considering we have so many more slots, right? And obviously, it's because we have a deeper talent pool, but it still speaks to Title's ability to qualify with only 2 spots going to Worlds, and the gap between him and the rest of the players in Japan. So
It's a PD.
no, it really is. Really is. Okay. We talked about Worlds. Good job, everybody else. Congrats to Wasian for making it to the final lobby and I believe placing 3rd, and the rest of the Worlds. Actually, you know what? Before we move on from Worlds, I want to just kind of acknowledge the World competitors that we had, because Kevin, I feel like in some way us sending players like T-Lides and Connor reminded me of when you went to Worlds, because looking back on it now, people recognize you as one of the best players in set 4. But when you qualified for Worlds, and keep in mind, like, we didn't really have the outlets, the reporting, whatever you want to call it. I think a lot of people just kind of thought of you as like a North American player who high rolled his way into Worlds, and then when they saw you actually playing at the World Championship, they're like, oh my God, this guy is insane. And so I think it's pretty cool to see other players who may not have actually gotten the spotlight, like Connor and T-Lides, actually make their way to the World Championship.
Yeah, I think it's pretty dope. I think that the more players, the like larger visibility for more players, I think is great. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the hard part about TFT, I mean, there are a lot of players out there, and if you don't have like a stream or something, then a lot of the times people just they won't know much, right? Because I think, I mean, Nick, you look like at player stats and all that, but I feel like 99% of the viewers will probably not, and they're more so gonna look at just who is the most watched streamers, et cetera, and that that's sort of what they use as their sort of benchmark. And a lot of times, if you don't watch somebody, you don't really know how good are they actually, right? And it's cool to see new players pop up. I feel like NA is pretty good about this, where we get a very big turn from set to set of players coming in and doing well, and it's like a pretty continuous rotation, I would say.
Yeah, I just real quick, I did kind of ego Toronto Tokyo by mistake. So he is also one of those players that I am talking about. I did not mean to leave him out, but yes. And Kevin, I think to the point you're making, I think that the fact that we have this turnover speaks. Some people could say that it's the variant that leads to the high turnover, but solely I actually feel like the high turnover is actually the result of the skill expression required in TFT in order to stay at the top. Because in other games, you can rely on what you learned 6 months ago to get you very far. But TFT changes so often that I think the fact that we have this turnover just shows how hard of a game it is to always have an edge on the field, and not that we have such a high level of variance at the highest level. I mean, obviously there is, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, seriously, I think it's so impressive that players like Setsuko and Dishsoap just stay at the top of ladder so consistently, and like Setsuko performing so well in tournaments so consistently, because it is hard to be that in it all the time, right? Like playing TFT competitively and being at the top of TFT is just like it's constantly thinking about it. It's constantly running things around in your head. You're never out of it, and that. It doesn't leave a lot of room for other stuff, right? It can definitely be consuming, like all consuming, and it's very hard to balance that, I think, with just life in general. And so the fact that they can do that so consistently and like stay there that well is really, really impressive. I think that's why we see a lot of players like a patch will click, they'll be really into it for a little bit, and I think there's a lot of players in NA who have a very, very high skill ceiling, but it's super hard. In Smash terms, right? People always talk about like it's not about how good your A game is, how good your B game is, how good your C game is, right? I feel like it's so hard to just beat your A game in TFT for any long amount of time, because again, it's just so much it takes so much out of you to just stay super in it. Particularly if it's something, I think like people definitely enjoy different parts of TFT. I think a lot of the top level players. Really in like that like soju circle, I'll like really enjoy the competition part of it more than anything, and that's what kind of keeps their fuel going, right? But there's a large section of players, players who have like one terms like Spetham, right, is like a player who plays for fun. Kevin, right, player who plays generally because he enjoys the game, and I think players like that can have a much harder time staying locked in.
Yeah.
But I also think it leads to higher highs as well, for what it's worth. I think when a player like that is really enjoying the game, like you see it, right? It gets pretty crazy. So yeah, it's just a tough game to stay locked in with, basically.
I love that you equate enjoying TFT with your ability to stay on top, because that's really what it is. Like, you either have to love the game or have the greatest level of motivation and commitment beyond all understanding, because there really is no middle ground for a game that consumes so much time in order to stay on top. I love that. Now, we talked a lot about Worlds. We all want to talk set 10, but I do think before we do it, we need to talk a little bit about kind of set 9 as a whole and give our farewell to Runeterra Reforged. And so I'll give a few thoughts first, and then we can kind of open the floor to the two of you. But set 9, I think, was a set that a lot of people were very excited for, and on release people loved. I actually think people did have very positive feelings towards the set until they realized the balance issues that were kind of coming down the pipeline, specifically with Legends and all the stats getting removed and then coming back, and the narrow lines and all that. I want to talk about the positives of the set real quick, which was that for as unhealthy as it was for the game, I had a lot of fun playing Ezreal. I had a ton of fun. I thought that it was the most TFT legend in the game, and allowed me to play in a way that made sense to me. So I did have a very fun experience playing with Legends, even though it did actually kind of ruin the game for multiple periods of time. And additionally, I will
Draven
say
patch.
Draven patch. That's right.
Ooh, Draven! I played a little bit of Draven patch. I was
That was
it
the
a
most
great time.
ridiculous.
I love that. I love that patch. I played like 10 games and I went first 10 times in a row. It's crazy.
I think I bot forward every game on the Draven patch. I was just like, what is this? But the other
Legend
thing,
patches. Right?
the other thing I just want to say real quick is that thematically, I thought it was such a beautiful and fun set to play. I loved being able to use the base league skins and have everything set in Runeterra. So while balance-wise and maybe systematically it had some flaws that were impossible to overcome in the time that we had, I do feel like the set had moments where I was really, really happy playing it, and I had a lot of fun. Sully, what do you have to say about set 9? And
Okay,
9.5?
I actually think, I think base set 9 was actually great. I think most people would probably say that base set 9 was like one of the better TFT sets, or like a pretty decent TFT set, and set 9.5 was where I think things started to really fall apart. Particularly towards the end of base set 9, I feel like there were, because I was also an Ezreal enjoyer, right? It felt like TFT for the first time in a while for me. I feel like it was just, it was flexible. I could slam my items, I could play tempo. I could figure out what I wanted to play. Beyond just 2-1. I think the mid-set patch was probably my favorite patch. The mid-set finale patch was my favorite patch in that set. And, there was so much going on there. There was like a ton of mid-game to be played. It was still like pretty heavily reliant on like that level 7 roll down that was kind of the outcome of the XP changes getting to. Was that in set 8 that level 8 became more expensive?
No. I think it was this set.
That was 9?
It was in response to Legends. It was in response to like TK and
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So like that made it like a very heavy like level 7 roll down meta, and it felt TFT, like the TFT, I think, which felt good, but it certainly had issues, right? Like the balance stuff was very frustrating. As someone who spends most of their day playing TFT every day, it can be a little draining to deal with that. And not that anyone should give any hate to the devs or anything, because they were certainly working their hardest and trying to solve it. It's just Legends is so hard to like figure out how to balance all of that. That while I think conceptually I agree with you that it was like a really cool concept and had a lot of cool design. It just didn't really work out. Did you played a good amount of set 9, right, Kevin?
I didn't play much of set 9. I played unfortunately a lot of set 9.5. So yeah, no, because during set 9 I was in Seattle with my laptop, so that's how I was playing TFT, and then my laptop basically exploded. I just didn't play TFT. Otherwise, I would have to play on my phone, and I did not want to do that. So I played a bunch of set 9.5. So I think I might have missed out, because set 9.5, I was like, God, oh no. But yeah, I remember like, so the thing is, when Legends came out, I got like flashbacks to when I used to play Dota Underlords. So I don't think many people will know this, but basically in Dota Underlords, like after their beta, they introduced this concept that's like of the namesake Underlords, which are basically these units that you choose at the beginning of the game that go on your board, and they have these unique effects that will affect your board. And the moment that I saw Legends, I got kind of like flashbacks, like nightmares, because Underlords were actually what made me quit playing Dota Underlords. They were that bad.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, there's some chance that Legends might end up like that. In a way, they kind of did. I mean, at least in 9.5, I'm not, can't say much about set 9, but yeah, they had their issues, they had their problems, but I think the other thing, and this is I'm glad for set 10, is that they got rid of the half sets, right? So one thing that you can notice with set 9.5 is how bad half sets can potentially be for the game. So one thing think of, two traits that you can think of, like Zon is one of them, and Invokers are another, right? Like the identity of those comps change, or like those traits change so much between 9 and 9.5, and when you look at the makeup of those comps in 9.5, none of it really makes sense, right? Like you look at the set 9.5 Zon units and they're like Silco, Jinx, Warwick, and Echo, and there's no cross synergies across any of them, and like what is the closest thing you can get is like Piltover somewhere in there, or it's like so hard to fit all those units together. Versus like, oh yeah, you had Jinx and you had Zeri in set 9.5, or like with Invokers you had at least a somewhat solid front line with Lissandra, and then you go from Lissandra to Milio, and you're like, well, now if I play Invokers, I have 0 frontline. And the other thing that is somewhat overlooked is that you replace Yasuo, which could potentially fit on an Invokers board with with the Ionia. You switch that to Xayah as your 4 cost, and you lose another frontline unit, right? So I think that the identity for a lot of the comps just kind of fell apart. And, because they have less time to think about the cohesion, that at least that's my theory, is that because they had less time, you end up in these spots where a lot of the sort of things that were sort of specially designed for the initial set, when you switch over to the 0.5 set, it kind of all feels bad, like
the trait web gets weird.
Yeah,
gets very weird.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point regarding the bridge units too. It's something I hadn't really considered, going from 9 to 9.5, but it makes a lot of sense. It does make me wonder on the point of 0.5 sets as a whole. Like if we kind of go set by set, how many times did a 0.5 make the set better versus worse? Because I think like set 5, for instance, the 0.5 was infinitely better.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like,
yeah. Isn't that the only case, though? Or no, I think set 7.5 as well.
Set 3, I think people would probably say 3.5 was better than base 3, right? I think
they're both good, but it's a little bit better probably, yeah.
Set 4, I think most people like base 4 better, right?
Base 4 was... Probably. Yeah, I enjoyed base 4 better.
Yeah.
I think 4.5 was still...
I liked
at least enjoyable for me. I enjoyed it, but... I do think 4 was better.
Yeah, I'm talking more like public sentiment, because I also personally liked 4.5 a lot, but I feel like generally speaking, most people liked 4. 5 infinitely better. 0.5
yeah,
better.
For sure.
Yeah,
6.5
was
people
worse.
would not say 6.5 was good.
6.5 was not a great
6
time,
was like one of the best of all time. 6.5 definitely dropped the ball a bit.
7.5 was better. Right, it was not great, but it was better.
It was.
I mean, they did the system change, where you could actually play not just
more than
dragon. Yeah, and then
which helped. It did help.
I feel like base 8 was better.
I don't even remember what was in set.
I remember it was Hero Log. When did you change in 8.5?
Warwick. They added Hacker Warwick. Yeah, no, 8.5 was definitely not as good as set 8.
Yeah.
Also Hackermans. Yeah.
I also remember people talking like during mid-set finale, saying like, "Oh, the game's actually pretty balanced now. Like it's pretty fun to play," and I'm nervous that 8.5 is going to come out and it's not going to be that good. And then 8.5 came out and people were like, I don't really like this anymore. So I feel like it's kind of every other, but maybe wait, what is that? So 3, we could say 3 is neutral, right? 3 is probably neutral. 4 was worse. 5 was better. 6 was worse. 7 was better. 8 was worse. 9.5 was worse. Okay, so it generally speaking leans 4-2 in favor of 0.5s being worse in terms of public sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if 5.5 and 7.5 have taught us anything, though, as long 0.5 sets work, as long as your initial set
is horrible.
Is terrible, and then
that's a good point.
Apply some fixes, boom. Okay. Nowhere to go but up. That
is fair. A 0.5 set has never made a good set great. It's only made a bad set good.
Yeah.
Or playable.
Better.
Yeah. Better. I mean, set 5. Actually, I thought 5.5 was actually very fun. I loved 5.5.
There were so many cool things about 5.5 that I thought were like maybe happy accidents, but like my favorite. I will never stop talking about Frontline Draven, because I think Frontline Draven is the coolest thing to ever happen to TFT. Like,
Like the
Iron
second
Draven.
row or like actual front line? I'm trying to
Straight
remember.
up frontline Draven, either the far left or the far right edge
Mhm.
of the front row. Because the way that it worked was in that set, you had Lucian and Vel'Koz and stuff like that who had these like line ults, right? That kind of
Mhm.
hit the farthest unit. So if you frontline your Draven, he actually dodges all of that damage. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
sense.
Super cool.
Super cool.
Okay,
You
well,
remember,
go for it. Go for it, Sully.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
I was just going to say, because I think we're probably in a place where we can wrap up set 9. The last thing I did want to do while we are here is kind of take a look at the top 15 players coming out of set 9. This is out of the 24 players who competed at regionals, the 15 players with the best AVPs. So I do have the stats here. And what I also have is my ballot for the final Don't Talk If You Don't Know ranking. Now, this ranking comes out this Thursday when Bryce and Dan do their rankings for the official podcast, but this is just my individual ballot, one of many. So while you'll have an idea of who I voted for and in what order, it does not reflect the total ranking. Now, this set as a whole, something I think the things that stand out once again, Sully, we see Setsuko, and you mentioned it earlier, ranked 1, the best average placement. The stat to look at is the adjusted average placement because that does not include the open bracket, whereas regular AVP is including open bracket. But Setsuko with a 0.5 or 0.6 gap over Dish Soap, which I think is surprising probably to a lot of people, but he and Weijin really did gap people this entire set.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it once. I said it once. I'll say it again. The dude's a beast. He is. Cisco is just so committed to the game, dude. It is so impressive how much he's able to put so much energy into it and just so much. Is it passion? I wouldn't know what to call
Anger,
it.
maybe.
Yeah, like emotion.
I guess anger does translate into passion.
And then Weijin just doing Weijin things. I mean,
I will
he's
say,
consistent.
Weijin had a pretty middle of the pack season until regional final. Like he wasn't bad. He was good all season, and then regional finals came and he smurfed that entire event. And then I think he boosted his AVP from like 4.0 something to 3.5 just from one tournament.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it was
That is
pretty
wild.
crazy. Something that stands out to me about this data, and for podcast listeners, I'll give you the values here. But Kevin, this is something I don't know. I don't know how often you look at like player data, Kevin. I don't know how interesting this is to you, but something that stands out when I look at this is that we actually only have 2 real first or eighth players in the top 15. When you're looking at this set of players, which are Milk and Robin, which I think would surprise a lot of people. But Milk and Robin, for podcast listeners, are the only players that have above 12.5%. If you know, there's 8 places, so 12.5 should be the average. So they are above 12.5 in both first and eighth rate. Milk is at a 20.5% first, 15% eighth. Robin has a 26% first
Holy.
and a 16% eighth, which the best part about that is Robin's top 4 rate was 49% and was still top 15 in all North America. So Kevin, I don't know how often you look at this data, but I think it is pretty interesting to look at.
Oh, this is honestly the first time I've seen this kind of data. The most data that I've seen is lol chess graph. you know, looking at lol chess graphs to do fantasy picks. But yeah, this is, I mean, that's crazy. That's nuts. I couldn't imagine having like
42%
maybe it's
of your
just the way
games
that I
first or
play,
eighth.
but yeah, no, never in my life. But I guess, first or eighth, that's how it goes sometimes.
I think the funniest thing to me is that Setsuko still has a higher top 1 average.
Yeah.
Setsuko has a 29% top 1 average, where for 1%, where Robin has a 26 one, and then he has a 4% eighth rate, 3.5% eighth rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
he's
like
not first or eighth; he's just first.
I don't think like first or eighth is a very solid strategy, right? Like it's the entire point of trying to do well in tournament is, or like anywhere, is like to mitigate variance, right? Yeah, consistency. Yeah. So the fact that if you have such a high variance thing, it's kind of like I feel like in those cases, if you do end up winning, it's kind of like, oh yeah, they flip lucky. They got
Yeah,
a few
they flip the
solid
coin.
hands.
It
Yeah.
reflects poorly. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. Someone in chat does call out also that David Ace is sitting with the perfectly balanced score line of 50% top 4 rate, 12%, 12.5% top 1, and
The
8th.
perfect TFT player.
He is literally the average TFT player in every possible way.
The most average.
So good on you, David Ace. Good stuff. Honestly, well, the fact that he's still top 15 does mean that he leans more towards those second places more often than those bottom. Like, he probably places second more than he places seventh, right? Probably does have a lot of those middle placements. And while we're, he's not on this sheet, but I do want to call out, because I love looking at Sully's data, because, and I don't mean this as a flame, Sully never wins in tournament. Like, he just never, ever goes first, but always has, like, a crazy top 4 rate, and this set was no different. But I do think it's fun. I think it's fun because this does help you kind of start asking questions that help you learn about people's play styles, Sully. And that's why I'm saying, like, oh, I love that you never win in tournament, because I feel like when you watch you play in tournament, the reason you never win is because you're always looking for these really creative outs that get you out of situations that you wish you had not gotten into, but you're really good at getting out of those low roll spots and finding yourself with like a second or third.
I'm good at digging the hole and digging myself out of the hole.
It's true. But even set 6, right? You talk about that NAR game that everyone points to as like, it was an awesome game where you got to do something cool, but also you've said that it was a game that you dug yourself into a hole in the early game and then dug yourself out, right?
Yeah, and if anyone wants to hear more about that, they should go listen to they can watch the YouTube video, right?
True, yes.
When I send them the YouTube video.
Yeah, it's on the Tactician's Crown YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I can't dig that up right now, but it's out there.
Oh. Not to put you on the spot. But yeah, no. Yeah. It's interesting. Wait, what is my actual top 4 rate this set? I have no idea.
Let me see. I currently have
I think I have a lot of 8s this set.
I have my data only showing regionals players. Let's see. Appies. Well, your top 4 rate now, it did dip a little bit after the last tournament where you had like a not great performance at Noxus. So it did
Noxus Cup or third day.
Yeah, it did dip down to 58%. Which is still good, but it was like 63 for the majority of the set until 9.5. So you were in like the top 15. Well, for a while you were like top 5 AVP with like an 8% first rate or something like that. So
it's playing every day one.
Yeah, basically. No, even with adjusted AVP too, though, you were scoring much higher. But yeah, you didn't have as many games in weekend 2. But anyway, I don't want to linger too much on this. I do have my ballot here. The people who are watching live can see this. For podcast listeners, I'll run through it real quick. Where I gave my top 15 in this order: Setsuko, Weijin, Kurum, Dish Soap, Milk, Goobums, Casper, Replay, Soju, Prestivant, T-Lides, Connor, Toronto, Tokyo, DQA, and Robin songs. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds. I feel like we can go really far with that, but I think we're all just excited to talk about set 10, and I know we have some calls as well. So we can move on from this segment and go back to just the 3 of us.
I want to 1 second. I want to say that I think it's a funny joke to make that people ask about rankings. You're like, oh yeah, number 1 is like Skara. It's like Skara, Box, Mort Dog. But the thing is, I don't know if did we ever talk about this? That Disguised Toast and Box like both played in Noxus Cup and both. Right. Disguised Toast didn't do like insane.
Yeah, and Skara won
to the final day, and Skara won. So it's an insane
I'm
time
a cutie pie one world.
TFT influencers. All I'm saying.
Yeah, it's true. I don't remember if we had an episode talking about that, but you're right. It was very cool to see all the influencers come out of the woodwork. And make it to these events, and like you said with Box, make it pretty far. Okay, now it's time. TFT Set 10 Remix Rumble is out on the PBE.
Oh my
Kevin,
God!
Why don't you talk about it first? Your first impressions. Maybe start with the actual mechanics. Right, we've got Chosen back in the form of headliners, and then I guess technically a mechanic. We've got this awesome music stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super duper hyped. So I mean, obviously, because in my opinion, set 4 was the greatest set of all time, and I feel like whenever I hear somebody talking about Chosen, I'm like, fight me, But I think I'm super excited for it. I mean, the best part about Chosen is it lets you really think about when you want to roll. I feel like a lot of like it offers a very nuanced decision, something that like you constantly have to be reevaluating, and that is like that is what I like the most about TFT is when you introduce non-obvious decisions for the players that they have to make, versus versus Legends, for example, where it's like I pick Legend. This is what I pick at the beginning of the game. That's it. There we go. But like Chosen is a very very, or like in this case it's called Headliners, but I think it creates a lot of interesting questions that the players have to answer. You have to really think about the game, and so I think if they execute it well, if the balance is good, then I think it can make for a very very fun set. And I've been enjoying PBE. I think there's some crazy stuff. One of the things that I think the TFT team is actively working on is the issue of easily 3-starring units. They just added that fix in the last patch where if half of the units in the pool are gone, you can't get the Chosen anymore, which I think is a pretty, I don't know if it's the greatest fix, but it's probably necessary.
But
yeah. I think that if that change stays, they'll probably want to readjust the bag sizes because, the bag sizes, they sort of change those values with the previous mechanic in mind. But they'll probably have to do some tuning. There is a game, there were a couple games today that I played in that there were just 3-star forecasts all over the place. They were everywhere. But, yeah. But it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun.
If anyone is listening and does not know what Chosen is, which I imagine everyone does, but just we'll set the baseline. If anyone's listening right now and does not know what the Headliners or what Chosen did, is that during the game, you can see a 2-star unit in your shop who will give +1 to one of their traits. And so it changes the higher level you are, the higher level the unit can be. And so while you may start off the game with a 2-star 1 cost in your shop, by level 9 or level 10, which is now just introduced into the game as an, I don't know if it's evergreen or if it's just for this set, you can go all the way up to a 2-star 5 cost in your shop with a +1 trait. So it does lead to some really cool creative lines that can be built throughout the game. Sully, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you're good. You're super good. Also, quickly, someone in chat asked what the difference between Headliners and Chosens are. So the only difference really is that Headliners can appear in your shop when you already have one. One every 4 shops will have. Every 4 shops you'll get a new one. You'll see a new one. I think that's pretty much it though for differences. But so what I wanted to say was, so Kevin was talking about like how you can make a lot of decisions, right? Chosen opens up, and Headliner rather opens up a lot of new decision points. And so I was actually talking to Replay and Esports Law in chat today, and Replay was like, why is this game more? Why is this patch more skill expressive, right? Because I had mentioned that I think this set is more skill expressive, not this patch. Sorry. And it's just exactly what Kevin said, in that I feel like for a long time now, TFT has been played by like templates, right? It's like it's almost been played on rails. I think the last few sets, I think this is very evident in set 9.5, where literally like on 2-1, you know what you're playing. You say, okay, I'm taking my vertical Demacia spat Mord template. I'm putting it all over my game, and I'm making decisions at this point, and they're all going to lead to that, right? It's like I think on rails is maybe a good way to put it too, but very templatey, very very templatey. There wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of like mid game decision making. There wasn't a lot of pivoting. It's very flowcharty, yes, very flowchart TFT. In this set, there's just so many, and this is something I like about set 6 as well, which plus set 6 plus set 4, 2 best sets of all time, making set 10 the new best set of all time. I feel like It's like the chosen mechanic mixed with like the trait web and how like kind of fluid a lot of the traits interact, how like a lot of the units interact with each other and how the traits interact. It's just this like absolutely beautiful. I love set 10 if you couldn't tell. It's only been a week and I love it. But it's this like crazy mix of just like fluidity and like ability to pivot, and there's so many points to make decisions, which just leads to so much more skill expression. In my opinion, like, right? There's like, because like exactly how Kevin said, you know, in set 9.5, there is no choice to be made on 2.5 or 2.6 generally, right? Maybe it's like, do I make 20 here? That you're right. But in this set, like 3-1, you're like 3-4 or 3-5, 3-6. These like slightly weird intervals. And now it's like, okay, well, do I want to roll for a chosen here? How, like, what does the lobby look like? What kind of tempo do I need this game? What can I play for this game in terms of like 3 stars? Do I want to look for 4-cost stuff? You know, there's just so much more. There's just so much more decision to be made. I feel like there's so much more agency in the game right now, and you don't just put this template over your game and say I'm doing the like. You certainly you do to a degree, right? Because you need to have some direction, you need to have some idea what you're trying to do in a game, and that's going to always be true in TFT. But there's just so much more that will pull you away from that, and there's so much more reward for being willing to move away from that and being willing to explore the game a bit more. And it feels. I think in set 6, I would often say that TFT is a sandbox game at the top level. That like for me, peak TFT it turned to a sandbox game, right? It was just pure like self-expression and creative board building, and it hasn't been that for a long time. And I feel like set 10, it is. Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Two things I wanted just to say to bounce off of that. The first is that it feels like the cadence of the game changes with even things. So what I mean by that is, like you're saying, oftentimes there are these like very set intervals where like you make a decision here, you make a decision here, you make a decision here, right? But what I've noticed, even with things like playing Punk in stage 2, right? Because you have chosens every set number of shops, but you also have a trait that can change how many shops you're actually seeing on stage 2. All of a sudden it's like on 2.6 I may be selling my chosen to get a new one, because while I was supposed to get that shop on this round, I'm actually getting it 1 round early, so you can like tech in Punk for a little bit, change the cadence of when you're actually getting that chosen roll to line up with like your actual level up, and all of a sudden it just feels like the game like times itself differently. And I can't remember, actually, I lost track of the second thing I was going to say. I'm sure it wasn't super important anyway. I don't know. Oh, I think I was going, no, I don't know. It's okay. Because what is more important is that we actually have a caller who wants to talk a little bit about set 10. And if that thing comes, now I'm like racking my brain. I'm so frustrated. Whatever. We'll move on to callers. Doesn't matter. Let's bring in our first caller on the day. Talk about set 10. It's going to be Plop. All right, Plop. Welcome to High Roll Radio. If you want to unmute your mic, let us know where you're calling in from.
Oh, hello. I'm Plop. I'm calling from New York and Buffalo. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So way upstate. That's why you've never been to a TC event, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have other life stuff that goes on the weekend, but yeah.
Okay. Understandable. All right. Well, what do you want to talk about?
All right. I guess I thought I was going second, but that's fine.
Oh, I did say you were going second.
No. That's all right. We'll go with the flow here. Okay. I mean, so I'll go verbatim off what I wrote. And then I guess I'll give a couple inputs, and then you guys can take it away from there. So yeah, I guess my hot take is that I feel like that they're, balancing better in set 10 PBE than most of set 9 and 9.5. And just to go off of this, I know obviously PBE is way different than live. For the record, I am a hard stuck Masters player, for those of you who don't know. I've never actually tried to climb beyond Masters, but my main thought is that, with set 9 and 9.5, I felt like balancing legends, augments, and units. I feel like that, for one, was just kind of a lot. Adding legends to the mix along with having all these different interactions between the legends, augments, and the units, it just led to this point where they were never able to figure out the balancing for everything. And there was always something that kind of just popped up. Another point to be made is I know Mort had mentioned at some point that there was a lot of new devs that were working on this set. I know he had brought that up at some point, so I don't know if that was part of the issue. But I guess going off of that, now that they've learned kind of, these new devs are learning and legends are gone, set 10 looks amazing. And I feel like maybe the balancing may or may not be better through set 10. I mean, through set 10 PBEs so far, I feel like it's been pretty good and they've been quick to, find the things that are broken, but it might just be a combination of legends are gone and these new devs are starting to learn, more or less about how to balance and whatnot. But yeah.
Okay, so I actually remembered what I wanted to say, and it's perfect because it's a perfect response to your question, which is I am going to withhold judgment on, I guess, like 9 versus 10 right now, because playing in PBE does change things. Because the game isn't public, because the stats aren't published, people are playing more creatively. And that's what I was trying to say before, is that people are playing much more creatively and more fluidly right now. I don't think that that necessarily is indicative of what the game will look like when it's released. However, and I'll throw this to Sully and Kevin to respond to, I do just want to say, like, I haven't played a lot of PBE, and so I don't know if this is always the case, but to me, the impression I'm getting playing PBE is that it feels like people are much more willing to play non-templated because there's nothing at stake. And I am not confident. I'm not sold on the fact that this is going to maintain the same level of fluidity and creativity when set launch actually comes next week. So I'm going to withhold judgment. I'm not actually sold that balance is going to be better in set 10 than it has been in the last few sets yet.
Yeah, I would say certainly that it could be the case that we get to live and balance is horrible and stuff is bad. I will say I think it's certainly good to be have a certain level of skepticism, right? It's good to have a certain level of skepticism coming into PBE because obviously it's not the set will look like. Set PBE is always people are doing weird things or going 9 when they should be able to go 9, et cetera, right? I will also say that this PBE feels so completely different from any PBE we've had in a very long time. I think PBE, I think as much as you have to be skeptical, there are a lot of things you can take from a PBE, and I think a PBE generally will be relatively, if you explore it properly, I think it will be pretty indicative of what a set, I guess, can be maybe, or is likely to be. I don't think that, from what I've played so far, I don't think the game is going to. There certainly will be metas established, right? I feel like right now, we're starting to see a little bit of meta rise up with disco stuff being pretty popular. Obviously, there's spell waiver stuff. There's comms coming up, but by this point in set 9 PB, everyone's playing the same shit every game. It's I want to elaborate on that a little bit more. Where it's partly because the game's harder to figure out right now because there's just so headliner is such a new mechanic, but I feel like you can just tell when something is gonna be. I feel like maybe when you play TFT as much as I do, or as much as a professional player does, you can kind of tell when things are gonna get degen, And I've certainly had moments even in PvE, even today with some of the balance changes, right? I think TF getting buffed was a little weird, and Urgot buffs felt a little weird. And then you start to get that danger sense tingling a little bit, but even then it's there's so much more to it that it kind of basically I have a lot of hopium, right? I have a lot of hopium, and I think my impression of PBE has been absolutely fantastic, but I beyond just my personal radar, which I think is pretty attuned as to whether a set's going to be good or not, I feel which I can say that all I want, doesn't mean anything, but I feel like it's pretty well attuned because I've been having a hell of a lot of fun, and I wouldn't play this game for 24 hours straight if I wasn't having a lot of fun. And just the way everything is set up unit wise, the trait web, how synergies interact, how the game, how the different ways you can play the fact that it's not solved yet. I feel literally a week into PBE, I'm bored of PBE. Top players are bored of PBE because it's just there's no stakes, and the stakes are what make it interesting when the game is kind of boring. which I unfortunately think is what the game has been for a bit, and for me, it's been kind of boring. Yeah, it's been very templatey. It's been very straightforward. Like sure, there are like little ways to like there's certainly still skill expression, but it's not the same kind of skill expression. It's not a type of skill expression I was super interested in exploring and super excited by. But this set has a lot of the stuff that excites me, which gives me a very good I think what is going to be the good feeling for a good set. I don't know. Maybe it's just hopium, but I think it's going to be a very good set. I think the PBE being this good is indicative of being a good set.
Okay.
I don't know what Kevin thinks.
Yeah, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this before. I think like the pieces are there. I like to think about sets and balance from like a conceptual level first. So, you know, the thing about last set is that legends were there, right? Versus Chosen. I think that from sort of like a concept standpoint, I think Chosen is far less problematic of just a mechanic in general compared to Legends. And this partially played into what I think is one of the shortcomings of the balance team, are like the sort of the balance from set 9.5 at least, is that when it came down to like Legends and having to balance around Legends and having to balance the game in general, there was a lot of inconsistencies because, you know, sometimes you were balancing around Legends existing, sometimes you weren't. We saw it a lot with like Earth, for example, where a lot of the high vertical traits weren't being balanced as if Earth was a problem, and Earth was a problem, which meant that you had this sort of inconsistency in terms of the strength of a comp versus how easy it was to hit. I think that, you know, you can sort of look at the pieces that are there. Like again, another thing that I thought like that comes to mind is like set 7.5, for example. It's for people that weren't sort of playing then or don't remember, like a lot of the AP comps were locked behind dragons, were locked behind actually econ traits like Shimmer, Lagoon, Astral, I think were like the main AP lines, and those, like, you think about that, those are all
wild. Yeah,
those are all econ traits, you know? Like, I remember talking to Bryce about this when 7.5 was first coming out, and I was like, set 7 already had this issue where all of the AP units were like dragons. There were no solid, you know, low cost or like 4-cost AP units, right? No, there were actually none besides the 8-cost dragons, right? So when you move from set 7 to set 7.5, you say, okay, they added more AP. It's still all on these Lagoon units, and it's like, well, that's not good. Like, that doesn't fix the problem. Like, when I saw that, I was like, okay, this I sort of already gave up on it. I think that when you have the pieces in place, obviously it doesn't mean they're gonna knock it out of the park. That's sort of, there's still an execution to be had there, but it's more so, can you fix, or, you know, can you work around something that could potentially be good versus something that you can see is something that you're going to have to be putting out fires around, like shadow items. You're going to be putting out fires all over the place, right? And that's sort of how I think of it.
What you're saying
feels like it wants to be good.
It reminds me, Kevin, what you're saying reminds me of a discussion point that Mort brought up actually like sets ago at this point, which was that and it might have even been in set 4 where they did this, where they said, we're going to start designing champions and designing abilities with more levers that we can control. Because we want to be able to fine-tune units, but we also want to make sure that we're not designing them with a fatal flaw that cannot be fixed. And in the same way, it kind of feels like that's what the set mechanics need to be treated with as well. So
yeah, definitely.
I think that's a really good point that you bring up, that if the pieces are there, then eventually you can get to the state, and we are going to be playing sets for a much longer period of time, right? We're going to be on 4 months for a single set instead of what I believe is usually like 2.5 months for a half set, something like that. So yeah, you know what? If the pieces are there, I can definitely believe it. I believe in the long-term balance. I think for me, I'm just saying, like, you know, I want to just wait to see what happens on launch day, because
just get hopiumed up. You're kidding, Nick. Just dive in.
This is what I'll say. Solely, you are saying you feel like the TF buffs and the Urgot buffs that came today scare you a little bit. I want to see what the next few days look like. I think maybe that's going to be the tell, because, you know, it's kind of in the Wild West, but as we get closer, people are going to start optimizing even on PBE.
It's going to be Zed. It's Zed everywhere.
Everything is Zed. Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to hold back.
I just want to say, I will say that I think the balancing stuff is exactly what Kevin said, where like it's much easier, I feel like, to balance than like Legends were. Like the pieces are there. It's just putting them together. So
I will say, if they screw up on Chosen/Headliners, what I'm going to do, I said this in Appy's chat like a few days ago, I'm going to die, be reincarnated as all of the Balance Team's babies, and I'm going to cry the entire night, and I'm going to spend all of their money when I grow older. It's what I'm going to do, so they better not screw up.
Plop, is there anything you want to say to follow up?
No, I think all the points you guys made was pretty reasonable, and I'm excited for set 10 to see where it goes. To add on to this, just one more take. Slip and Slides, who backed out of the call, wanted me to bring up their take. So I was going to do that, and this is verbatim what they wrote in the Discord. With set 10 being possibly the most flex set since set 4 or 4.5, are flex sets healthier for competitive TFT? What do you guys think about the younger generations of TFT players' flex skill versus the old guard, who are arguably stronger at flex play?
All these young kids coming in. Asa, that young little punk, he's got no skill, man. He's got nothing. I'd like to see Asa playing Fight Night back in set 2. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Ain't no way, man. Ain't no way. No, you know what? I will say, it is fun. It is funny to think of, like, you know, when's the last time we really had flex TFT? Okay, hold on. I want to make sure I don't ramble on this. I want to make this concise. Flex TFT since set 4 has not really existed in the same way that it did in set 4. But solely, I know I've talked to you about this. I have this theory about flex that it's just gone forever. And the reason I think that is that back in set 4, the average power level of any lobby, let's just say out of 100, I'm going to make up like arbitrary numbers. The average power level was like 65. And if you could make a board that was 65 out of 100, on average, you would top 4. And that's why I feel like flex play was pretty good, because you could low roll, and if you knew what you were doing, you could knowledge gap the lobby into a 65 or higher out of 100. The difference is people are way better at the game. It is significantly more optimized. People have way more data. People are doing paint by the numbers, which does mean that on average, you will have fewer players who are just trolling their endgame boards entirely. So I do hope that flex play can be back this set, and that we will see the return of the old guard. I would love to see Kevin and Appy's on top going to Worlds for set 10. I do think, though, I am a little skeptical that flex play will actually be back in the way that we've seen it in the past.
I think if there's a set to know if you're right or not, it's this set. I think that if this set can't be like the flex play set, then it doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. That's my take. I think for me, a lot of like flex play and a lot of why it hasn't even had the chance to exist because there's been no mid game for a long time. There's been no real mid game for a long time in terms of like making meaningful decisions and you know, finding outs and spots where it just hasn't existed.
The way that I would say is, like, you know, I think the data argument comes second. Like I made a tweet about this like maybe a month back, but you know, flex play has not been enabled, or it's been sort of shut out by the set mechanics for the past like 3 sets. You know, dragons, very bad for flex. Hero augments, very bad for flex. Legends, super duper bad for flex, right? None of the mechanics like promoted flex play, which means that, if you're trying to play optimally, then flex should never be on the table. It shouldn't. It shouldn't, just because if your main mechanic is saying you should stick to one comp, stick to one carry that carry until the end of the game. You can't buy more dragons because they're too expensive. You buy one dragon and that's your dragon. That's and then you buy one hero augment. Have fun. That unit's going to be on your board until the rest of the game. Stuff like that is there might be this issue in terms of data optimization and the fact that you might have optimized comps and it might end up being very cookie cutter, right? But that in theory, I think that headliners are actually a way, or if flex play doesn't exist with headliners, then it's just dead. But I think that in theory it should, right? Because just think about the way that headliners work, right? One, headliners, they don't guarantee you what trait you want, right? You might not get the trait that you're looking for. If I'm trying to play vertical KDA, but I get a headliner of the unit that I want, but it doesn't have the shiny trait that's the trait that I want it to be. You have to buy it, right? You're gonna have to buy it. If you try to greed it and roll your next 25 gold, you're not gonna see the unit again, right? You're just not. And so I think that's the way that I sort of felt about the reason why I really like Chosen is because I felt that the very good players, like the best players on the server, were not the ones that were complaining, for example, about 4-1 Chosen. They were the ones that knew what was strong and what you can use to then build a decent board versus trying to look for exactly what you're looking for, right? Because that's the thing, is that in the previous sets, the previous 3 sets, the entire idea was that you have to kind of look exactly for this unit, right? I can not actually count on my 2 hands. This should never happen. Is how many times I've seen somebody in 9.5 have a Zaya 2 with the with Neela items, right? The RFCs, RFC, GS, or whatever. Instantly, you sell Zaya 2 for 1 Neela 1. That's always the correct play in 9.5. Whereas I think, the way that the units are set up here, the way that the fact that legends don't exist means that should never be the case in set 10, right? You should never be like, oh, I have this 2-star. For the most part, it should not be that common where I have a 2-star 4 cost, but I'm just gonna sell it for this 1-star 4 cost, and that'll make my board infinitely times stronger. I feel like if that's not a problem, then you have a space where flex can hopefully be not too bad. I think that with live events, if you can't look at stats, that's also going to be a pretty big thing. I think that if you have all of these players that are relying on stats and they show up to a live event where they can't look at the same data, I mean, there's only so much you can write down on a cheat sheet, right? I feel like
both arms covered in tax.tool stats.
I just want to interject to say that I do love that at TC4 we made the rule that you couldn't look at data, but you could hand write whatever you want. Because I do love that dedication. If you're just going to write a novel of all the tactics.tools data, then you deserve to have it.
So it's maybe a little long-winded, but I wanted to quickly broach what you said again, Nick, real quick. I think it's important.
Yeah.
Because you said that the average player, before you need to get to a board that's a 65, right? People won't troll you. You said people won't troll their in-game boards anymore, for the most part. Sure. So it's fine, right?
Oh, I'm not saying nobody, but yeah.
And a meta like, okay, well, you know what I mean. And a meta like the thing is, like, as Kevin was saying, for so long now, TFT has been all about that end-game board. It's been all about getting to that cookie-cutter thing that you've been looking for. But, like, in a set like this, I feel like it's so much more about, how do you stay strong when you need to be strong? Where do you find the spikes? How do you play the mid game? How do you play? It's not about the end game board. It's about how you get there, right? It's the journey, not the destination in this set, where it's been all about the destination for a long time now. And I think that leaves a lot more room for mistakes. Skill expression. Players are definitely a lot better on average, but there's certainly still plenty of people will try to play the game the way they've been playing the game. I think there will be a lot of ground to be found from players who look to play flexibly.
All right, Plop. I know we kind of hung out on that call for quite a while, so I'm gonna send you off now. But is there anything you want to shout out before you go?
No worries. Thank you for having me. Yeah, shout out to everyone, Gangly, Spicy Appies, Ramkev. If you guys don't watch them, I highly recommend you do, and they have a lot of knowledge. Excited for set 10. Let's go.
Yeah, all
Get some
right.
people
Take
up.
care. See ya.
Go.
Later.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go straight into the next call because it's another set 10 call, and I know we are running a little low on time. If you guys do have to go, let me know. But we could also just maybe go an extra 10 minutes after than later than we normally do. But let's get straight into this next call. We got Mr. Incredible here. Mr. Incredible, where are you calling from?
I'm from Florida. Sorry, guys. I'm also playing a video game at the same time. So
Well, let's go. It's okay. What do you want to talk about? We'll do the talking once you give the take.
yeah, you've already sort of touched on it, but I think it was actually the first episode of the podcast that I made a call in talking about how I thought the barrier of entry for the game was way higher than it should be, especially without an incline tutorial. And I think the introduction of the headliner mechanic, on top of also having augments now that were introduced in set 6, and whatever other like advancements they've made to the game have made that barrier of entry even higher. And there hasn't really been any like addressing,
Okay. Yeah.
how hard it is to get into the game.
I have a big. Sorry, I need to talk first really. So I have a lot of anecdotal evidence about this. Is that I think the problem with that take is that I don't think playing good TFT is necessary to enjoy TFT. I don't think knowing what you're doing is necessary to enjoy TFT. The reason is, so not to flame Sappies. She used to play TFT a little bit. She doesn't know what she's doing that much, but she enjoyed it in past sets just because she enjoyed the units and everything. And this set did so much. She's getting a lot better, I will say. But this set does so much to make casual players enjoy the game. The music stuff, the visuals, like even just the flashes of headliners. She hasn't played TFT in so long, and she's playing it like every night with me right now because she's just enjoying the hell out of it.
Wow.
So, and she doesn't really know what she's doing. That's totally fine. I think this, the barrier of entry is high. I think like a set like this that makes playing the game fun, even if you don't know what you're doing, is so important because she's getting the experience and she's getting through that learning curve because she's enjoying the other parts of TFT that are being offered, like the music stuff, the cool visuals, the fun synergies, and by kind of enjoying that part while working through like the skill part, she's gonna get there, and she's already getting there, and that makes that barrier of entry a much less of a problem. That's my take.
I will say, first off, I think that's a really interesting point, Sully. I think it's very interesting to say, and I think I agree with you. And it's cool that you have the anecdotal evidence. There are a lot of things about this set that are super fun, even if you are not super informed of what's going on. But I will also say that there's like a lot of reading required for this set if you want to know what's going on.
That is true.
Like
That's very true.
a lot of reading. This is the kind of set where I feel like I will not even understand what all the units do until I'm like 40 games into the set. Like there's no way that I'm pretty sure most of the time I'm going to be playing a game and learning something about the unit or the augment or something that I just did not know existed up until that point in time, until like the middle of December. I'm like pretty confident about that, I'm not gonna lie. So I can see where Mr. Incredible's coming from. I think there is a barrier of entry for improvement, but I think that a lot of time will be required in order to find an edge on competition. But I also think that like that level of complexity it makes the game fun for longer, and it also means that like we may actually see, we saw Setsuko with a nearly full point placement for the majority of the set of edge against the field for set 9. Like we might actually just see that again, and maybe the entirety of the set, where players can take this complexity and solve problems that other people don't even realize are there, and find edges in brand new ways. So I would say, like, I agree with the take. I disagree on the premise that, like, it's a problem, because going back to what Appy says, I think there are things that are still in place that do make the game fun, even if the barrier of entry for improvement specifically is harder or is higher. Kevin, what are you thinking?
I feel like I have this sort of, maybe it's anecdotal, but do you guys remember there's recently, I think Milk tweeted something about how, or maybe it was on Discord, but he was talking about, like, one of these, like, there's something in a Champions kit in 9.5 that he was, like, not aware of was there until regionals. It's completely slipped my mind now.
I mean, I remember, like, the Janna heals the whole board in whatever set that was, that, like, nobody knew Janna.
Yeah, that was sick. No one knew that.
Board. I think that, you know, TFT players are prone to missing that information because it's just so much to take in. I think that, you know, in terms of the amount of stuff that you have to know, I think Riot Games doesn't really help out its player base too much, like between, like, League and TFT, right? Like, just think about, imagine being a new player in League of Legends, you know, even without all of the sort of other issues involved with League, there's so much information in that game. And I think it's even more than in TFT, to be honest. Like, you have to learn every single champion, you know. I don't even know what every single champion does, and I was playing that game since, you know, several years ago. But I think that where was I going with this? I feel like I was going somewhere with this.
It sounded like you were just saying, like, Riot in general makes very complicated products.
Yeah. I guess it really comes down to what you want to get out of the game. I think that, you know, if you think about it in terms of stepping stone, or, like, blocks, right? I think that maybe the thing is, flex play is not very beginner friendly potentially. If you think about maybe how somebody gets into the game, they might start off with a single guide for one comp, and then after they've learned to play that one comp, they might start to bridge out into 2 comps and then 4 comps, but they might not even ever get to the place where they play get to the point where they're willing to play, like, fluidly with a fluid board. But I mean, yeah, it really comes down to, like, what you're trying to get out of the game, right? Like, if you're trying to reach top level, then yeah, it is harder. But I think that that's good in the sense that if it's harder to reach top, like, if there's more stuff that you need to do in order to get to the very top of the game, that means that that's where the skill is, right? That means that it's more skill expressive. I think that, you know, for players trying to learn the game, I don't necessarily know if, you know, headliners are that much more complicated than, you know, for example, Legends, right? Well, I guess the thing about Legends is you could just pick one legend and then only play that legend, and you don't have to pay attention to what the other legends do. Yeah. And in that sense, it's more beginner friendly, right? Like, I could always pick TF, and then I won't have to worry about anything else, and I can sort of just play the same thing. And that is one of the you know, one of the potential concerns is that people can't hard force comps. But yeah, I do think there are trade-offs. That is what, now that I think about it, you know, there is that sort of.
I just want to point out that now that we're, like, playing to 10, it's actually so insane to me that TF was a legend, that you could just have Pandora's every single game.
Yeah, like, oh boy, Pandora's on 2-1 again.
It's a whole different game.
But so I want to push back Mr. Incredible on one other thing, and actually Kevin reminded me of this. So set 4 was chosen, right? So obviously we've played with this sort of mechanic before. When I played 4.5, it was the first time I ever hit GM. And again, like, I'm not a great player, but, like, I was able to, I've hit GM in a few different sets. I know a decent amount about the game. Set 4, though, I was not a one trick, but I was like 12 to 15 out of 20. playing brawlers. Because it was like a comfort comp that I knew, and like Appies was saying earlier, like, and you know this because you're good at the game, but like it is really just about the way you get to that end game. And so just because I was playing 12 to 15 out of 20 of one comp, like the fact that I was able to do that in Chosen was just, you know, kind of a testament of the skill expression of like, yeah, you can still end up in a comfortable spot and learn one comp. Like Kevin was saying, that is how a lot of people do learn the game, but like there's still room for that mid game, like Soli was bringing up earlier, which is the skill expression of the game. Like you get to play stage 3, which I would say like set 4, when it was really good, stage 3 was awesome, but like there were definitely some parts of set 4 where there was like literally no stage 3, where like you kept your stage 2 chosen, you did not sell till 4-1 or whatever. But like I think that it is worth noting that set 4 did allow people to play narrow lines, but it forced them to play fluidly until they got to a comfort spot. And so I don't think that it necessarily makes the barrier of entry so high that someone can come in and is forced to learn how to play Fast 9. You like, even to this day, if anyone watched me streaming on TikTok this morning, you give me 100 gold on 9. I've been playing TFT since set 1. I'm going dead 8. Like there's literally no way I'm capable of building a legendary board. Shout out to CLE, because I know he was there and watching that. Like I've been playing this game for a long time. I just can't do it. My brain doesn't work like that. And so I think that people will find edges and they will find comfort in different places, even when the set mechanic does reward more flexible gameplay. So I want to get going because I want to bring Riley on to kind of end up and round out the show. So, Mr. Incredible, sorry for kind of cutting you off short. I feel like we could continue talking about this for a long time, but is there anything you want to say or shout out before you go?
No, I do like Appy's point on you don't need to be good at the game to enjoy it, which is for some reason an argument I really haven't heard before. So yeah, I like the argument. And then 2, yeah, I guess the main thing about the headliners is that like for me when I was learning the game, it was really easy to just like basically what you're saying, like have an end board that you're trying to get to, and with having the extra synergy not being set depending on the unit, that's what really makes like those like the amount of flexibility that you have in your endgame boards depending on which trait gets the +1 from a headliner is really cool to me. But yeah, I think that's the part that makes it more confusing for a new player. But at the same time, sort of like Ramkev said, like you learn the game a lot of the time by just forcing one comp. And chances are you'll still just force the same board, even if it doesn't really fit your headliner +1 anyway.
You'll get there.
Yeah,
I promise you'll get there. All right, Mr. Campbell, thank you so much for. Oh, actually, yeah. Sorry, I didn't give you a minute.
Yeah,
to do any shout outs.
No shout outs. I will be at Vegas, but I didn't get a comp pass, so I'll just be hanging out. So I'll make sure to say hi to whoever's there.
We're all there, right? So we will see you there.
Yeah, peace out.
All right, see you later. All right, now, yeah, it is 9:30, so we are going to get going soon. But I would be remiss if we did not bring on the final part of the Triforce tactics.
Oh my God.
I feel like it's wrong. Wait, am I allowed to put my hands up? Because I'm not.
Yeah, you can put your hands up.
Okay.
I am putting my hands up. You just can't see it because I'm not on cam.
Riley is here. Riley, where you calling in from?
The great city of Philadelphia, fucking Pennsylvania.
Woo! All right, well, welcome to the show, Riley. I mean, I know we kind of just want you on the show. I think you did have a take. What was your actual take?
My take is that I miss talking about the game, and I miss you all. And Vegas is going to be so much fun.
Yes, Vegas is going to be amazing. Actually,
very, very hot take. Yeah, I know.
A great segue to, I guess, kind of talk about Vegas a little bit before we close out the show, because all 4 of us will be there, right? Riley, you'll be there. You're not competing, but you'll kind of be hanging out.
I'm not competing. I don't have a spec pass. I'm just gonna kind of hang out. I'm there for a full week doing like other work stuff, but
okay.
I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I'm just kind of hanging out with people.
Nice.
I cannot talk about it on this stream.
Thank you, Riley.
That is the hint.
Yes, yeah.
Vegas is gonna be too fun.
It's gonna be
so fun.
Really cool. Kevin, are you competing or are you just spectating?
So I don't know if I've told a few people this. I managed to, I think, land a competitor's pass.
Ooh,
which
okay.
means,
Let's go!
I will probably be playing because my initial plan was to I had the spectators pass and I was going to climb solo queue in the hotel room for a good portion of it. No, but, I'm super excited. I'm down. LAN events are super duper fun, and also I think it's about time that all of the TFT community graduated from this game and we all became degenerate gamblers. So Vegas is the perfect place
We're
to
so
do that.
close. That's right. That's the next step in our progression.
We're just
right?
baby degenerate gamblers.
Yeah, seriously.
Babies first. Yeah.
Yeah, Vegas. is
Wait,
gonna
Ryan,
be
are you
really
looking
cool.
for a spectator pass? Because you probably, I know that like spectator passes and competitive passes are like going around. So you might be able to find one if you were looking for one.
I don't think I'll have the time to actually like be around to spectate much.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I just don't know if it's worth it. I do wonder if there's going to be good opportunities for people to like just hang out if they don't have spectator competitive passes. Like what the setup's going to be like inside the casino and everything.
That's true. Yeah, well, and I know like we even talked about it in my Discord before, like trying to organize a big group breakfast or something. I say breakfast because
Diner.
all these DGen
For all East
TFT
Coasters.
players. Yeah, we have the East Coast buff. Going to events, you always get the East Coast buff where you get to wake up early, you feel refreshed, you feel like you slept in, but it's like 7 a.m. It's amazing. And then maybe trying to grab like a big breakfast with a group of TFT players. For all those in chat, I do just want to know, like, wait, hands up is not a bad, like, wait, I'm like always afraid when it comes to TFT. Like I can't tell people. Can I tell people to hands up if they are attending, or is that gonna get no? Or is that bad? I don't.
No one's gonna drop a Hydra. We're fine.
Okay. Well,
Wait,
anyway,
no, never mind.
I will drop a Hydra IRL.
why don't Riley? How about you guys why don't you just say something in chat if you're going to be in Vegas? I would love to know who of like the Hyrule Radio, fan base is going to be there. And I can't say for certain, but what I can say is that we are trying to, and I think I'm allowed to say this because nothing's confirmed. We're just trying to do something. We're trying to organize a live Hyrule Radio at Vegas. Sully and I are working on it right now to see if that's something that's even possible. But if that does happen, it'll be a lot of fun. It would be so cool to have in-person takes, people calling in right next to us, giving us their hot takes and whatever questions they have too, and being able to do it where we just like call up live guests of like pro players who just want to come and answer a question or whatever. We'll have to see. I don't know how possible it is. We're trying to figure it out right now. But yeah, I mean, to echo what Kevin's saying, LAN is so fun. And all the four of us, the four of us are probably the most experienced LAN TFT players in TFT, right? Like Riley and I in particular, I think have attended
Riley
the
is the most experienced.
See, I have only competed in 3 though, which puts me on par with the other 2 in this call. The other 2 Triforce people.
True. But let's not count compete because then I have 0, so I don't like that.
Okay, so we are all. So me and Gangly are actually, and Protroid are actually straight up the most experienced at LAN in general.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Taking over the
suckers.
business.
You're all so lucky that I'm not competing. You're so
you're lucky I'm not competing too.
You just gotta pull out the set 2 Zerg. Okay, Nick pulls out the set 2 Zerkers, like Beast inside, and Riley, you pull out like the Talon one trick Beast inside.
Yes.
Oh, wait a second.
Take over Vegas.
Okay, next TFT Vegas event, so down for like an old set side event where you can play I
play on Chinese TFT, the mobile game.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh man, I wish you could all see me back in my prime. You think they hand out third places in Fight Night Rising? No. Those are hard-earned.
I think I've also I might have gotten a 3rd place in Fight Night Rising, actually, at some point, too.
Let's go. Wait, yeah. Have Kevin or Sully, have either of you ever competed in Fight Night? I know I'm derailing off Vegas.
I haven't, no.
The first tournament I ever entered for TFT was in set 4. what was it called? The
Challenger Series.
Challenger Series.
Oh
I know
God.
Kevin's entire competitive history.
Yeah. But
Well,
yeah, no fight nights. No fight
Fight
nights.
nights, you all missed out. Riley and I know where all the real fun is. But anyway, to circle back to Vegas, it's going to be so much fun. It sounds like from what I've heard, there's like more stuff that they're announcing about. I mean, we don't even know like the schedule or what else is really going
The
on.
schedule is actually on some website.
No.
At least like the timing of stuff. They don't have like the side events and stuff out, but they do. I think it might be on the Eventbrite or something. That they have like the times of when like the competition part, like the rounds are, and when like check-in is and stuff.
Really? Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
It does. It says doors open at 10 a.m. Game 1 starts at 12 p.m.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
No.
Look at that.
Today I learned.
Who knew?
nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huge.
Well, yeah, we'll have to see how like all the side event stuff. I would love to actually be able to meet everyone that, you know, I've interacted with in TFT. I know everyone else feels the same way. It is cool. Like, even though, you know, I'll say the four of us, Riley, even though I know you're calling in, but like you are someone who was like on a podcast previously, like this exact one, right? Where like in TFT, it's such an interesting dynamic where even though we are like the content creators, it doesn't ever feel like we're on a pedestal or like above the viewers. It's just like we're a big community and we are just the people who happen to be doing this thing. And so it's going to be really fun to actually be able to meet everyone in person. I'm going to tell everyone right now, though, I am so bad with both names and faces. I'm pretty sure I have like mild face blindness. I took an exam once and I did score with mild face
He
blindness.
sees you all as ants.
That's right. So I'm gonna give fair warning to everybody that please, when you see me, just tell me your tag and like what stream I know you from. It'll help out a lot. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
SPICYAPPIES from First Tactics.
That's right. I don't know. Yeah. So Vegas, I feel like I keep just going back and say like, yeah, Vegas is gonna be fun. I don't have like
It is,
super
though.
specific things to say.
I
except
mean,
that I'm
that's
super
the
excited.
yeah, that's the vibe. Let's fucking go.
Who's
Hey, big
bringing
shout out
the
to Bryce
Smash
again, by
setup?
the way. Oh, good point.
What'd he say?
Who is bringing Smash? You bring the CRT?
Ooh,
How many
yeah.
CRTs are we gonna have over there? You know.
Yeah, we need the rematch of the Beyond the Summit TFT crew battle because now we have Kevin who
Oh my God, we
actually
do.
beat Zane in a set. And Zane,
And
let me
Zane
just
will
say,
be there.
you are so lucky you haven't seen my Samus yet, Zane. You are so
Zane
lucky.
will be there.
True.
Man, I'm so sad I didn't get to go to Summit. Like, genuinely.
Yeah.
It's
Okay, because you're going to
fine.
Vegas.
Vegas, baby.
Vegas is going to be
Vegas,
Summit
baby.
7 times 2 levels of fun.
Yep. Yeah. Gonna be a good time. But anyway, we're 10 minutes over. So I think now is a good time to end the podcast and round it out. Sully and I are gonna try and be more consistent. I apologize to everyone who listens because one, we appreciate you so much, but we are so sorry that we just have not been doing it lately. Life has been crazy for us both. And it's been hard to kind of stay on the horse or whatever the
True.
phrase is.
3 country, I feel you. Hector, I'm riding it.
So yeah, we're gonna try our
On
best.
that note,
Anyway, Riley,
we will try our best, yes.
before we send you off, is there anything you want to say or shout out?
Shout out to these guys. I miss talking to y'all regularly.
Kiss a homie.
Kiss a
Vegas.
homie.
Bye, Riley.
NTC5.
Bye.
Peace.
All right. And now it's just the three of us. I want to just make sure, I mean, it doesn't even matter if we miss anything because we've got no time left. But yeah. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
This has been a lot of fun. I feel like Sully, we always talk about it that it's like the best episodes are when people feel comfortable to just like talk and say whatever they're thinking. Kevin is like such a perfect person to do that because you are down to hop in with whatever. So I'll open up the floor to you first, Kevin. Is there anything you want to say or any parting words? Anything you're excited for coming up?
Yeah, I mean, excited for set 10 to hit live. As that, I had my whole spiel about what happens if the balance goes wrong. You know, I'm looking at you, Riot in Nikio. All right, I know you're on the balance team. I see you. But yeah, I'm hoping it's fun. I feel like if it's fun, then I'm more motivated to actually compete, which would be cool. Because I have not been at any point motivated for the past three sets. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited and looking forward to Vegas.
All right, Sully, any thoughts?
Yeah, shout out to anyone who watches the podcast. We will try to be more consistent. We will be, rather. We're not going to try. We're going to do it. Thank you to everyone who's been making streaming set 10 such an enjoyable experience. And just, yeah, stay tuned. I'm going to show you guys some sick fucking TFT this set. It's going to be good.
That's right.
It's going to be real good.
All right, so just a couple quick thoughts. Number one, shout out to my foster son who's been playing TFT with me during PBE, and he loves it. So having a lot of fun playing TFT. I'm really glad that you're enjoying it, and he's been asking me for a shout out. So this is it. So you better have done your reading because that was a condition. So TFT has been so fun lately. Honestly, it's the most plugged in I personally have felt in a long time. Set 9 was really hard for me to stay up with the game, to keep up with the game. Like 9.5, I hardly watched any of the stuff after Noxus Cup because which was only because I was working Noxus Cup that I got to watch it. So I think I felt a little bit detached from TFT. But the beauty is that even when you're not playing the game or like getting to watch, it feels like because we have such active streamer communities, I can just like hop into Sully's chat and be friends with everyone as if I was not there for a few weeks. So shout out to everyone in TFT that just keeps everything alive. Shout out to the devs for such a sick set. Set 10 is going to be fun. Vegas is so exciting. I cannot wait to actually be there on the ground and show off some of the content stuff that I'm going to be working on there. So yeah, I mean, like Sully said, we're going to be doing more podcasts more often, trying to be more consistent. We're not going to do it every other week forever, but it looks like we may do something like that leading up to Vegas. And then from there, we're going to kind of schedule it around events more similar to how Don't Talk If You Don't Know does it. So we're going to try and we're going to be on top of it this set. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you everyone for tuning in. This is our most viewed episode in I think ever. So if you're listening on the podcast right now, you can catch us live on twitch.tv/SPICYAPPIES, where we're actually recording this right now on a Tuesday night, which is when we normally do it. So if you want to catch it live, make sure to follow Spicy Appies. And if you're watching right now, make sure to subscribe, because that's one of the ways you can keep the lights on that beautiful little pink-haired house he's got going on. So thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been High Roll Radio, episode number 17. We'll catch y'all next time.